Welcome to the Renaissance Achiever. Today, our special guest is Rhaven Epiphani, calling in from Dallas, Texas. And Rhaven is currently a realtor and investor. And she also just recently self-published her first solo book called Restored, a Guided Journal, which I have my own copy. I have it right here on my desk. How beautiful this is. I love it. How are you doing today, Rhaven?
Wonderful, Sarah. It is, a beautiful, warmer day in Dallas, so I'm grateful. How about you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here. And I just recently learned about your work history and that you were not always a realtor. You actually started out as a teacher. What grade did you teach?
I taught first through fourth grade. So I started out in fourth grade, and then I taught Montessori, which was three grades in one, so first through third grade. And then my last was second grade, so almost
Wow.
all of elementary school.
All elementary school. And you did Montessori. So was it at like a charter school or a private school?
Surprisingly, it was actually a public school. It was just one specific school that they allowed to, maintain the Montessori model, but it was still amongst the regular DC public schools. So,
That's
yeah.
cool. Oh, that was in DC?
Yes. Mhm.
Wow, cool. Okay, so you started out as a teacher and then you said you moved into nonprofit. What exactly did you do in nonprofit?
So I started off as a workforce readiness mentor. So basically helping people to develop skills that they needed to be able to get and maintain jobs or to upskill. And then my program closed, so I got promoted to be executive assistant to our CEO there. So, paths just took me where it would.
Wow. And then after that, is that when you moved into a realtor or entrepreneurship? What was the path from
Um,
there?
at the end of my time at the nonprofit, and I won't say the end, it was a great time. But after the pandemic and things like that, I felt like, I had proven to myself that I, could make money if I needed to, but I was ready to kind of pursue my dreams of entrepreneurship and just go ahead and jump off the cliff and see if I could fly or, learn to fly. And so I quit back in, I think it was 2021,
Mm.
and I did a bunch of freelance work. And actually, I'm missing something. I had gotten a master's in medical cannabis science during that time while I was at the nonprofit. And so I thought that I was going to open a dispensary. So I was on that part. I was like, I'm going to quit my job. I moved out to Las Vegas. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So when I quit, I was working at a dispensary at the time, but also doing a bunch of freelance work and trying out new things. I've always been good at organization. So that was something that helped me pay my bills during that time, doing home organization.
What? Okay, so when you say freelance work, what okay, so you got a master's degree in what was it? In medical
Medical,
cannabis?
yes, medical cannabis science and
Medical
therapeutics.
cannabis science and therapeutic. I didn't even know you could get a master's in that. So you're working at a dispensary and then you're also doing home organization, like
Yeah.
private clients. I saw a car yesterday at the soccer fields with like their advertisement on the side of the car for home organization. And I was like, I need to take a picture of this. I need to hire this person.
Love
it's
that.
it's such a need. That's awesome. Was that the freelance work you were doing or is that something else?
That was a freelance work I was doing. I was
Okay.
on an app, one of those freelance apps. And so I was doing that. I was doing personal assisting. I mean, because I was an executive assistant before. So during that time, I was kind of giving myself an opportunity to be like a kid and explore. So, I just set
I
up my
love it.
calendar for the things I was able to do, home organization, personal and executive assisting. I think those were the two things that I was doing pretty much on the app. And then I was working at the dispensary for a short time as well. So even though in my head, my big dream was like, oh, I'm going to open this dispensary, I was also still in that phase of like, I'm just going to explore a bunch of different things. I took a bunch of courses. I got a bartending license. I just did a bunch of fun stuff during that time to explore. That's kind of how my dreams shifted a bit, how my goals ended up shifting. So I tried, a bunch of things. And I thought, you know what? In doing that, it kind of opened the door for me to have the courage to come into real estate, you know?
Awesome. Awesome. Just by exploring a bunch of different things and entrepreneurship in general. You're like a full-time hustler. Like, I'm just going to do all these different things. I'm going to make money however I want. And that's what I mean. My first episode in this podcast was called We Are in a Rebirth Era. And it really was talking about like that shift that happened in 2020 where people were like, I just want to do something different. I want to explore entrepreneurship a lot more. I think that became popular. And it sounds like around that same time, you were like, yeah, I'm just going to try these things and I'm going to learn everything and do everything. I love it. I'm the same way. I'm the same way. That's so cool. Although organization is not my personal strength. So I love that for you. I love that there are people who can do that. Okay. So how did you end up transitioning into real estate?
So to rewind again a little bit, back when I was teaching, I was heavily interested in real estate even then. Like I took, those free seminars that would come to your city. I was there. I used to spend my Sundays going to the model homes in new build neighborhoods. But I don't know, I didn't have the courage to jump out there, nor did I feel like being on the phone all the time. And I think it's just because when you're teaching, you're pouring all the time. So the thought of being on the phone and doing all of the realtor things was, kind of daunting to me. So fast forward, how did I get into real estate? It was like, okay, I kind of broke the ice of all the things that were the reason why I wouldn't do it before. I don't have a steady paycheck anymore. So I don't need to like, be afraid and say, no, I'll stay right here. I don't have the thing where I'm consistently just having to pour. So, I can have an open door to set time where I need to be on the phone or be in person or whatever it would require. And I had also already shown myself that I can do certain things that often look one way differently if I need to. And so
Yes.
I was like,
Amen. Amen. You don't have to do it the way that everyone else is doing it or you think it's supposed to be done. Like make it work for you, right?
indeed.
Yeah.
And so I found out about a program where you can get your license for free or at least do the course for free. And I said, why not? I mean, I have nothing to lose. And so I started studying for the test. And as I was doing that, I was just, I didn't have like a big goal upon it. I didn't say to myself, oh, I'm going to be this type of realtor or do this specific thing. I just said, we're going to get our license. We're going to put the effort in. We're going to see what happens. And kind of that is how I ended up in real estate. I got my license and I decided, okay, I'm going to do these things consistently and see what success it, brings. And eventually, I kind of started getting into a niche after that. So,
I love
yeah.
it. I love it. I have a lot of realtors in my family. I have four sisters. All of them have been realtors at some point. One is still a realtor.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm the only one who hasn't done it yet. I've thought about it, but I'm always like in so many different things and it's consuming, right? Like you kind of have to be present. Like you said, there's no way you could be doing a teacher job when you have showings and like last minute submitting papers and all of that. So, okay, cool. I have a few questions because I'm all about pivoting and giving people permission to pivot in their career path. So many of us were raised to think like, okay, what are you going to major in? What is your career? What are you going to be when you grow up? You have to pick one thing and then do that for 40 years. And I just don't think that's really how a lot of people operate. Like when you're 18, you know what you want to do for the rest of your life and that it's okay to want to change and do something different. But I think some people experience shame around that, that they're changing or they're giving up on something. So, yeah, I want to ask you, like, what was your experience? And I think you have to have a strong trust in yourself that, I know this is right for me. I know it's aligned, even if other people are going to be judging me for moving on to something new again. So, how did you kind of navigate that?
Okay, so what's funny is in a lot of my earlier pivots, I just did it. Like I'm just like, this doesn't feel good. I'm going to the next thing. I feel like over time, as I made more pivots, that's when it started to get a little bit more challenging. I think it was because when I was younger, it was like, oh, people chalk it up to you're in your 20s, whatever, that type of thing. When I got older, those words that people would say, they may not even say it to me directly. You may hear it on a TV show or hear it in someone else's conversation, but the idea of like, you're all over the place, or, thinking that at this point you should be mature enough to be steady and settle down, or you know what you want to do. I would say it got a lot harder. That shame that you talked about started coming a bit more, especially being that I'm the oldest sibling. And in a lot of my cousin relationships, I'm the oldest cousin. Though no one external put that pressure on me, sometimes I'm like, I have to set the right example. And
Mm.
there's this thing in the back of my head that's like, before I really think through it, it feels like I'm not setting a good example by not sticking something through. But what the actual truth of that is I've stuck all these things through. I've tried them all the way to the end and
Mm.
did the fullness of what I was meant to do in that space. And so even just like kind of shifting my mind about what that looks like, hey, just because you didn't go to 40 years of retirement in this space, it does not mean that there was not completion. And so like shifting my mind
Yes.
to that has really been helpful. And I won't pretend that every time I make a pivot that it doesn't come back up.
Hmm.
But, when I was in my exploration phase, what I said to myself in my head, I don't know if you've ever watched Girlfriends, but there
I
are
don't
two
know.
characters on there. One is named Joan. She's a lawyer, been a lawyer. She's that friend that's like has it all together, makes all the decisions, all of that. And then there's a friend named, her name is slipping my mind right now. I think it's Lynn something. If you guys are listening, I'm sure you know what character I'm talking about, but she's like all over the place. She quits a job or gets fired from the job every 5 seconds, you know, or she's in school for extended period of time, switching majors. And I just gave myself the freedom. I said, I used to think I was a Joan, but I'm feeling like I'm more of a Lynn in this season, and I'm okay with that.
I love that you're okay with that though. And I love the reframe that you used in that it did finish it to completion. I wasn't giving up. I actually completed its purpose in my life. And that's actually something I talk about in an earlier episode too, when I talk about shiny object syndrome versus soul threads. So shiny object syndrome is when you get distracted easily and you leave one thing and move on to the next because you're like, oh, that looks like the next best thing or the next best thing. And you're moving through things, and that has this negative connotation that you're just getting distracted easily and not finishing and not following through. But there's a difference between pivoting in shiny object syndrome and pivoting in soul threads. And a soul thread is when even if something doesn't logically make sense, it feels aligned and it's right for you, and that this is what you need to do for this season. And that to other people on the outside, it might not make sense. But there's this quote by Steve Jobs that says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. So looking back, you look back at your master's degree and you wonder, why did I get that master's degree? And you're like, oh, this is the people that I met through this, or this is the skills that I learned through this, or maybe I'm going to build this one day. And right. And so like, it doesn't always make sense now, but as you follow those soul threads and you trust your intuition, you don't have to worry about that perception. You're finishing it to completion of whatever its purpose was in your life, right? I love it.
Indeed.
Yes. So, how did you start out as a teacher? Tell me that story.
So that's funny. When I was getting ready to go to college, I was actually in high school. Throughout high school, I had taken acting classes and different things. I loved doing hair. And so I was so sure that either A, I would be an actress, or B, I would be a cosmetologist, or both of them, because you need to make money in between while you're auditioning. And as I got ready to go to college, I was headed to Spelman, which is a all women's college, very prestigious all women's college in Atlanta. And I remember one of my family members said to me, they might not remember, but they said to me something to the effect of, why would you go to Spelman to be a cosmetologist? And mind you, in my mind, when I said a cosmetologist, first of all, let me say there's nothing wrong with just being a hairdresser because you're really a therapist, you're really like a friend, you're all of these things. And
Yes.
also, my vision of what I wanted to do was I wanted to own, own the salon, own law school. I wanted to, be a celebrity stylist and different things. Like I had bigger visions. I just didn't share it with them because obviously that wasn't a safe space to share. But, nonetheless,
You had
fast
big
forward,
aspirations.
indeed,
Yeah.
that comment, when you're in high school and the adults are telling you, hey, that doesn't make sense, they've already been out in the world. You haven't yet. And so even if, at that time, your gut and your dream is to do this one thing, your thoughts are, well, the adults are saying it's not safe over there. So I ended up choosing around education because I've always loved children too. Don't get me wrong. A lot of my family are educators. So I grew up with my aunt, going to her school, playing teacher, and really not even playing, just playing teacher. Like when I would go there and I was old enough, a lot of times kind of running classrooms. Hopefully, I think the statute of limitations is up on that so she won't get in trouble. But, reading to children and doing different things. And so it's been in my blood. So it's kind of like the safe option. Spelman had an education department. And I was like, okay, I don't think my high school mind consciously said, hey, I'm going to make this safe decision. I think my thoughts were, okay, if it doesn't make sense to do this thing, or if my college won't be paid for if I go this route, then, I will do my second option, which is education. And we'll just see where it goes from there. So
Yeah.
I went to school for early childhood education, which is basically elementary education. And I fell in love with it even more because, I mean, like I said, it's in my blood. I grew up that way. And then my first teaching placement was actually at my elementary school,
Oh, that's
teaching fourth.
special.
It was
How
very
full
special.
circle, right?
Yes, so much. Literally, my partner teacher, there's four of us on a team. My partner teacher was my fourth grade teacher. So it was very much so
Oh,
a very full
that's cool.
circle moment. Yes. And so that's what I kind of mean about completion too. Like, even though I only taught on the opposite side of graduation for 3 years, like there's a lot that brought kind of completion to my life during that time. And so I got there kind of just by following my family roots, which I think a lot of us do too. We follow whatever mold has been set out for
Totally.
us, or the path that has already been etched out for us in the beginning, unless you are just one of those daring young people that just like forget all of that. I wasn't there yet. But yeah, so I went the family route. I taught at my elementary school, gleaned a lot from there, and then moved forward through my other school placement.
I love that. I think it's so common that we're just exposed to these careers that our family members are in. So that's the natural route that we go to because that's what we know. That's what's familiar. But what's interesting to me is you look at cosmetology, that's actually, I think, a lot more lucrative than an elementary school teacher. And yet it
Absolutely.
was looked down upon because of maybe status, like, oh, you're just doing hair. But like you said, there's so much more into it. You're serving people on an emotional and social level, as well as being an artist and making them feel beautiful. Like there's so many aspects to it. And teachers, like, that's such a hard career. I have so much respect for teachers, but I don't know how they do it. It's so much work. It's so much pressure. I have 5 kids and I'm overstimulated all the time by them. Being in a classroom with other people's kids all day, that just sounds so exhausting. And then the pay doesn't match up to the work that you do. So I have so much respect for teachers. And at the same time, it's like interesting that people are still encouraging people to go into that career when there isn't a lot of hope for success or financial freedom through it, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, but it's just
Not
kind of,
without a bunch of years and
yeah,
extra.
long-term extra trainings or extra education. And I think it's just kind of shows like our society's mindset is really outdated in our traditional career routes, and that we live in this digital age now where we have like 20-year-old TikTokers making $1 million. And it's just like the world is so different, but we're trying to hold so tight to those old traditions of what a career should look like, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I was going to say, I think letting go of that, and really, I think it's a gradual letting go process, but letting go of what a career should look like is a part of making those pivots all the time, because what often has kept me from making pivots as well has been the idea of like thinking through how whatever I'm envisioning fits into the mold that has already been set. And then giving myself permission to say, but it doesn't have to look like that.
Hmm.
Like even, you know, when it comes to how you make money, and when it comes to how you build and run your business, there's a lot of times where it's like it should go this way. And, allowing yourself to say, let's just explore and see what happens has been really important in order to give myself permission and have the courage to step out.
Yeah, and making sure you're building your business around your lifestyle. That's the whole point of being an entrepreneur. It's not to let our business run our lives. It's to let our lives be at the forefront and build our business around that so that we can live the way that we want to live. It means having boundaries around the way that you do things, right? Even if it's not the way others are doing it, or maybe it's not the fastest way to make money, but you're also not burning out and you feel your soul is more aligned, right? I
Oh, but
oh go no, go ahead. Go ahead, share your thought and then I'll bring it up.
no, it's okay. I forgot.
Okay, so I was going to ask, you said that growing up, you really thought you were going to be an actor or a cosmetologist or both. So do you still have those desires within you, or do you think that has come and gone?
Cosmetology has come and gone. Like, I still like to do my hair occasionally, but the idea of like that being a perpetual thing, yeah, that has come and gone. I look forward to having children one day and maybe doing their hair. But yeah, for that, not so much. Acting, I have that on the side. And I say that because it's not a desire of mine enough to like go back and take acting classes and, do all the things to be an actual thespian. However, I did say I want to audition for a movie or show or whatever one day and just see what happens. Like, I feel like because of, social media and things, there is a lot of opportunity to not, maybe you're not going to become a movie star by not studying the art. But, I was like, hey, as a bucket list item, if I were to, audition for a movie or a show and get it, then sure. So it's one of those things that's like, I'm not going to actively pursue it. However, if the opportunity presents itself, or even if it's like close enough for me to step out there and grab it, I would definitely be open to it.
Yeah, it still sounds exciting to you, something. Not like
Yeah.
you have to make it your top priority, but you're open to it. And because you're open to it, maybe right now isn't the season, but it's like your mind and heart is still open for when that time is right, that's going to be a part of your life. Did you know that my family moved out to Atlanta so that my husband could pursue film acting?
I forgot about that. Yes.
Yes. So we came from Hawaii a little over 3 years ago with 4 kids. We now have five. He left his career as a police officer and started acting at the age of 39. Never
Wow.
acted before. And he has been steady booking roles, getting auditions. Last night, I was up late running lines with him for an audition. And it's crazy because people think of an actor just being like an A-list celebrity, big time movies, but there are so many acting roles out there that you can make, good income from: commercials, short films, docuseries. That's a lot of the stuff he's done. And I mean, obviously, he would like to get the bigger roles, but it's all like building up to that. And he's had steady work in the last few years of acting, and it's not as impossible as people think it is. It's not as hard. You just got to go out there, take some acting classes, do auditions, and I guarantee you will book something. If there's something specific you want, that's different. You got to work for it, but it's not an impossible dream. So I love that
That's
that's one of your
exciting.
passions. Yeah. Yeah. So right now you're doing the realtor thing. Just looking at your history, I imagine you're not planning to do realtor for the rest of your life, or maybe it's a side thing for the rest of your life. But what is some of your deepest desires or big dreams or goals you have for your entrepreneurship
Concerning real estate or in general?
in general?
Okay. So, like you said earlier, I got into entrepreneurship for the freedom of it. In a lot of my careers before, even when I was teaching and also doing a million side hustles on the side, I still felt like this is my bucket. We stay in this bucket. I became an entrepreneur for the freedom of being able to give, the fullness or do things at 100%, but also to have the freedom to express myself in multiple ways. And so, when it comes to my goals for entrepreneurship, of course, I have real estate goals. I don't, I'm not a traditional realtor as people think of it. I work with a lot of investors actually. And so that gives me a lot of freedom as far as, I don't necessarily have to make all the calls I thought I was going to be making, or I don't have to necessarily go around town as much as I thought I would be. I mean, there's still a lot of work involved. Don't get me wrong. But with that flexibility, I definitely enjoy writing my first journal. I actually have another book that I wrote a while ago that I want to
What?
go back and edit and, add some more things to and publish that as well. And so my real goal in entrepreneurship right now, like, of course, I have numbers and things somewhere written down, but really my goal in entrepreneurship is to give myself the space to pour out in whatever way makes sense in a given season without me feeling like I'm locked into one thing. Now, in my mind, I do see real estate being a long term thing.
Yeah.
What way it looks, I'm sure that will pivot over time, especially, once I get more into the investment space. But I do see real estate being a long term thing because it's definitely something that you can crank up as much as you want or,
Yeah.
bring it down, in the seasons that you need to. Um, I definitely want to give myself space to, maybe this is an entrepreneurial thing. This could be just a fun thing. But, I like to travel and, I like to have fun with my girlfriends and different things like that. And so, I would love to give myself the space to create fun experiences that I like and then to invite other people along the journey,
Mm,
so even if that's not like a, entrepreneurial path, I know it can be, but I'm just saying, even if I don't choose to make
yeah.
that an entrepreneurial thing, making space for that is important. And then I definitely want to get to a space where I'm able to have the freedom to give from an overflow monetarily.
Yes.
I want to be in a position in my life where someone around me needs something. I'm able to, support them in ways that make sense and still be okay myself.
Yes. Aspiring philanthropist. Yes.
Yeah.
Same, same. So for the girls' trip type of thing, it would be maybe like a planned or guided girls' trip, maybe like a retreat, but you have all the travel plans and people can jump in and meet other women and be adventurous together. That would be amazing. I would totally
Indeed.
do something like that. And I like that you see real estate as long term because that's something that can be steady to fund all of these ideas that you have, right? And keep things going. Can you tell me a little bit about the book that you wrote that you want to publish? What kind of book is it?
So I actually wrote this shortly after my master's program. It's more of a guide. It's really the scientific details of cannabis, but the direction that I wanted to take it after having gone through my journey is to give scientific details and for people that want to use cannabis medicinally, give that information, but also give the other side of what it looks like when you want to move in a direction of no longer depending on or using cannabis in your life. Specifically, especially on the side of people who are using it recreationally, or even if you were using it medicinally, but experiencing the psychoactive effects and you want to go to a place where it's like, hey, I don't want to be in that phase of my life anymore. Giving kind of guidance on what that can look like and how you can do that in a way that is healthy and allows you to do the background work necessary to make sure that when you do, the rest of your life is supported.
Wow, that's so amazing. When you think about it, they should do that for all medications, right? Like, this is how
Indeed.
you can use this for you to help, but this is a temporary fix. And long term, what is it that you really want to get and how to get off of it? Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of anybody promoting information in that way. So that's super cool.
Yeah, when you said earlier, I forgot how you said it, but basically having got my master's and then not doing what I thought I was going to do with it, I'm still very grateful that I got it because it helped me. Like during that time, I was healing myself without really realizing it and doing those things. And the things that I learned in my program, though it was about cannabis, we learned a lot about plant science in general, learned a lot about the body systems and how they work. And so it really helped me to chart out my own healing path. And so that's kind of even where that book would be birthed from. There's a lot to be added to what I originally wrote. Because again, the original was a little bit more textbook, like here are all of the cannabinoids, here are all the terpenes. But as far as the inner healing piece, having gone through that master's program and then being in therapy at the same time, it was like a beautiful, perfect storm that helped me to heal myself. And I know that there are other people that kind of need that, who, you
Yeah.
know, you can be using cannabis medicinally for something physical, but also, to be honest, a lot of people use it to avoid certain things.
Numbing emotions.
Yeah, indeed. And so I went from that place of avoiding it to using cannabis medicinally to work through those things in therapy to getting to the place where I've increased my physical health. I've been working through the things I need to do to support my mental health and my emotional health. And now I'm ready to transition out of it. And so I'm sure there's many people who don't even know that that's a possibility for them. I've heard plenty
Yeah.
of people say, and I think even before I started on my second half of my journey, say, this is just gonna be how it is
For the rest of my
forever.
life, this
Yeah,
is what it is. Yep. I know a lot of
indeed.
people like that. Yeah, for sure.
So, just giving a tool to know it's possible, but also if you choose to do it, there are ways you can do it that you don't have to just jump off the cliff. Because people who have never used cannabis before, a lot of them from the outside looking in, especially in church and different things like that, will have this idea of like, why don't you just quit? But having walked through my own journey, I understand that there's a lot of intricacies that go into that. If you want to quit for a better life, then that means you also have to build a better life to support
Yes.
that.
You have to fill in the gap. You have to replace what you're taking out, right? By filling in that gap. If you're numbing or hiding, then you got to face the emotions and you've got to build a life that feels fulfilling and meaningful. Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed.
And I love what you said about how the master's degree was really about healing yourself. Like sometimes we go into something thinking that this is for my career or this is to make money or this is for this purpose, when really the whole purpose of going through something is what we need to learn from it, what we need to heal or overcome as that stepping stone for ourselves. Like we are always doing work, but the biggest work is always ourselves. We are the work, right? That we have to always come back to and improving ourselves. That is the life work right there. All of your career pursuits come down to how much are you elevating yourself and evolving and growing and healing along the journey. You said you were into holistic healing or holistic wellness, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine that kind of came from your own journey. So are there other types of natural medicine or healing or things that you're into? Because I'm totally into that stuff. I'd love to I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
So I feel like this is a very big picture. When I say holistic wellness, I mean like well in all areas. And so that means using different techniques, including, how you eat, what you eat, etc., the routine you have in your life, the way you engage with the things in your life, seeking out to use more natural products, and less chemicals where possible. And really getting familiar with what your body needs and then figuring out how to supply that. And so as a woman, that kind of looks like a journey of, what products I'm using for menstrual health. Mentally, that has looked like, being mindful of what I'm watching, what I'm listening to, my screen time, my play time as well, which is a newer thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something that originally I was kind of doing innately, but has become even more important. Where, okay, in business, you can go business, business, business. But holistic wellness wise, sometimes it's like, okay, I need to go take a break and go to the park or go for a walk or color or something. Do something childlike. That's fun. No pressure, no statistics attached to it, none of that. And then eating wise, I won't say I have specific dietary restrictions, but in general, if I was telling someone else, getting to know how your body responds to things and then feeding it in that way. And knowing that that can change too, just like our career paths change, your body could be cool with something one day and then a month later, maybe not, or vice versa. It could be, you were allergic to something in a past life and now you can eat it. I think this all comes, down to one root, being able to listen to your body.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say your theme here is like intuition, like really being intuitive and aware of like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? How is this affecting me? I love that your whole idea of holistic wellness. It's not like, oh, I need to go and do this thing. I need to do that thing. It's, I just need to live with intention. Like our everyday things are affecting us. They're either raising our health and our vibration or they're pulling us down. And so how can I be preventative in diet, in what I'm listening to and what I'm watching, how much sleep I'm getting, right? All of those things, like coming back to the basics. And I think it's so hard in this society. We are so busy. Adulting is so wild. Like my to-do list is crazy. Every day we have all of these things we have to take care of, especially when you got goals and aspirations. And it's really hard to keep up. And so you have to be really intentional about your priorities and how am I going to carve space for these things that really matter instead of just mindlessly going past these things that are really essential to our well-being.
indeed. I think one thing that's helpful is putting certain things on autopilot in the background, like setting a morning routine and making that kind of autopilot, setting a
Yes.
night routine, making that kind of autopilot. And then you can have more space to flow in between. Once you have set certain things in stone, knowing, okay, I need to do this certain thing at least once a week. Have I done this on my calendar, whether it be playtime or friend time or whatever it is for you? But also for some of us, let me speak for myself. In my journey, it wasn't easy to necessarily get to that place of listening to what my body needs. And so committing to that journey of kind of thawing out, you can be in that space of autopilot and running to the point where when I say to you, listen to your body, listen to what your body and your mind and your soul needs, it may be a foreign idea. So even giving space and intentionality to slow down and do the things needed to get back in touch with yourself, and knowing that that may be a journey depending on how icy you have got. is important to be able to kind of flow through your routines because yes,
Yeah.
adulting can get super busy. And I always have this push pull thing of my ambition, but also this is my one life to live. So,
Yeah. Slow down,
that
that
dance.
slow
Yeah.
down and relax and just be present. And I think that's why it's so important to have some kind of ongoing assessment practice of, okay, this is when I check in with myself. How am I doing in all of these? Where do I need to fine tune? Where do I need to adjust? Where do I need to make changes? What am I not doing? What am I doing too much of? Right. And whether that's weekly or monthly or daily, of carving out that time. This is where I check in. This is where I assess and I check all of these boxes and I take a look at, okay, what's really going on with me? Because if you're not regularly doing that, that's when you're on autopilot. That's when you're not really living. You're not living with intention. You're just going through the motions.
Absolutely.
I have loved this conversation. And before we close up, I really want to ask you about your guided journal because that's something new that you have created and launched. It's called Restored and it's really awesome. I have loved the intentional journal prompts in it. What inspired you to create this? I mean, this is a big project to create something self publish, market it, bring it to fruition. What inspired you to start on that journey?
So this journal is really guiding other people through a journey I've been through many times, but overall, it really highlights the themes of the things I've done. And sometimes it was to make the pivot. Sometimes it was to, the journal's called Restored. So sometimes it was about being restored back to myself, and to heal through certain things. And so what inspired me was just, first of all, I was just in my belly, like when you have something in your womb, you have to give birth to it. But it came from a space of this is how I walk things out and seeing other people ask certain questions. I was like, this is a personal journey. And so, though I can give you specifics, I wanted to give a way for people to take the bullet points of my journey and create their own and sit with themselves. Because going back to the idea of thawing out and checking in with yourself, this
Mhm.
journal really takes you back to a space of having to reflect and think and process. And then eventually at the end, create the new vision for your life from that space. Um,
Exactly what I was just talking about. Like it forces you to carve out this time to just self reflect and listen what's going on.
Now, and then, just also, we're in a world of social media and TV and all of those things. And I think if you're in those spaces all the time, you may not even really know the fullness of who you are because you're absorbing so much of who everyone else is. And so it also encourages you during certain spaces to take space away so that you can really let fall away what's really not you and recollect whatever it really is authentic to you yourself, including what your vision is for your life. Because sometimes you could think that you want a certain thing, but you kind of only think it because that's what you're expected to want. Taking a space away gives you a chance to say, you know what? I thought I wanted red, but I actually want pink. Even though
Mm.
everybody else is wearing red and it's the popular thing, I actually want pink. And so I'm going to give myself permission to go with pink, whatever it may be. And so also giving people a space and encouraging people to step away for some time and give intentional space to that. And I think that also walks people through that pivot too. People, especially who have been committed to that. I have to be here for 40 years or I have to do this thing forever because I've been here. It really walks people through a lot of the underground work necessary to go forward in the ways their heart truly desires to.
I love it. That's so good. So important. And I really like what you said about social media. That is so true. We are flooded constantly with other people's lives, with their opinions, with their advice. And it's overwhelming, it's overstimulating, it's confusing because there's just so much noise, so much noise. And so we have to unplug, step back, and just go within. And I always tell people that a lot of the work I do. It's not, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you, what do you think you need to do? And always shining the light back on yourself because everybody has the answers within themselves. Everybody has the ability to heal themselves. Only they can know what's best for them, but they have to get quiet enough in order to hear that. And they have to maybe do some healing in order to start trusting their intuition again or trusting their inner voice if they have been disconnected from it, right? So
Indeed.
good. So where can people find your journal, Restored? This is what it looks like. If you're watching on YouTube, Restored, a guided journal, where can they find that?
They can find it on my website at restoredjournal.com. It's technically also on Amazon. You will have to spell my name absolutely correctly to find it. But but yes, I recommend getting it from my website. You will get it a lot quicker if you order it from me. You can also order through Amazon if you're like, hey, I gotta use my Prime. It's up to you. And I actually have a special code for listeners. If you want to get 10% off, you can use the code Renaissance and you'll get 10%
Woohoo!
off your journal. Obviously, that only works through restoredjournal.com.
Thank you. I'll put the website in the show notes. So 10% discount if you use the coupon code Renaissance for the listeners. Thank you. And where can our listeners find you or follow you?
So let me say, I practice what I preach. So I am definitely in an on and off space when it comes to online. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I am online, you can find me at Rhaven Epiphany on Instagram and the same for my YouTube channel. You can find me through Rhaven Epiphany with an I at the end of Epiphany, and my name is spelled with an H. You'll see it in the show notes, I'm sure.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. And I love that you take space from social media as we should, but that's where we can connect with you online. Thank you so much, Raven, for being here. This is incredible. You are the ultimate Renaissance achiever, and I've loved having this conversation with you.
Thanks, Sarah.